Happy Thursday, mathematicians. Today for Math Workshop, you're going to need your math notebook, highlighters, glue stick and pencil, your Envisions workbook. Remember, that's the thin workbook with the black and white pages. You're going to be tearing out page 53 and 54, and your blue resource folder. In your blue resource folder that's inside of your anchor binder, go ahead and open it up. On the left-hand side, you're going to take off your black clip. Take off the teach pages, the first one that says 4-6, as well as the practice page that has the Caso de San Marcos that is in St. Augustine. The remaining pages will be for our next unit that we'll use next week. Go ahead and close that blue resource folder, keep it in your anchor binder, and put this back in your basket. We are going to be completing our last lesson today in this unit. We have our test tomorrow, so remember that you should be reviewing all of the lessons about how to multiply two-digit factors by two-digit factors and asking questions when needed. Before you start your lesson today, remember you should also make sure that you're checking your classwork with the answer key so that way you can reach out if you have any questions or need any kind of support. Go ahead and open up your notebook to yesterday's lesson. We have been practicing multiplying two-digit numbers using partial product, and more specifically we talked about the area models, which we called an array, and this is to show visually how we are breaking apart our two-digit numbers into 4 sections. So we're going to continue working with that information today. So if you would go ahead and turn your page. On the left side, you're going to go ahead and record this as page 60, and on the right side, this is 61. Turn back to your table of contents so we can go ahead and make sure everything is nice and neat. So I have one more space, or maybe 2 more spaces I can put, so it's page 60, and this is focusing on partial products to multiply. So continuing with what we did yesterday, and today's date is 10-8-20. Remember, at any point you can pause your video, that way you can get yourself caught up and organized, and then push play when you're ready to continue. Go ahead and flip back to today's pages. We're going to use our glue stick, and we're going to glue our teach page, the 4-6, to the left side first. Crisscross. Smooth from the bottom towards the top. And then remember that you should rewrite your page number if it was glued on top of, so 60. And then I'm going to even use my pair of scissors. When this one was cut, it didn't cut all the way. So I'm going to cut out the teach page so it fits a little bit more snugly. All right, and on the left side, we're going to write today's title. So we're going to write partial products to multiply. So once again, we're focusing on the same standard. We're just having additional practice today. Then use your highlighter to highlight the box that goes around the title so we remember what our focus of our lesson is today. And we're going to go ahead and start. So the first part is a review of some vocabulary. So highlight the 2 words partial products. Partial products are products found by multiplying each place value of both factors. So this is very important for us to remember that when we say partial product means part of the final answer. When we say part, that means we're taking apart the original number to look at separate values of their place values. So we're going to go ahead and start this information. So the first thing says this area model shows, and we have to determine what are the 2 original factors. So looking in our area model that's been created, we need to count how many are along the left side. So this is going to refer to our groups. So we can even write the word groups. So when we count, we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we can even record that that first section is 10. The second section is 1, 2, 3, 4. So when we put those two values back together, our original factor is 14. When we look along the top, we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So we have 20 along the top in the first section, and that's a 0, plus, and we have one column, so that's a 1 in that position. So putting those back together, that gets me my second factor of 21. Now when we look around the area model, they've actually already created some of our workspaces. So once again, if we have our division of our values for each separate place value, that's creating a section we have to solve to find. So in the first place, it says 10 times 20 because the outside is 10 groups of 20. We can also place that above where the arrow is because it's representing here. So using our zeros trick, we can take the two zeros, put them directly into the product, and then 1 times 2 gives me 2. So this first section is 200. This next portion is once again looking to the left, so 10 groups of 1. So we could say this represents 10 times 1. So this is already here, so we just fill in the 1. 10 times 1 gives me the value of 10 as the product, and we can record it in that section. The bottom portion, we have 4 groups out to the left times, and we look at the top number, so 20. We can then fill that in with the equation that they've already created for us. Using the zeros trick, we can bring the 0 and then left with 4 times 2 to give me 8. So this section is worth 80 squares inside. And the remaining piece, we have 4 groups of 1. So 4 groups of 1 is 4, and we circle it. So now we have our partial products. So those are the numbers that were created when we solved for part of the final answer. And it says each area represents a different partial product. Complete each equation, which we just completed. And it says, what are the partial products? It does not ask me what's the final answer. So when we list the partial, I'm going to go ahead and highlight that part of the question. So we're going to write the numbers 200 because that's the first section. Then we have the answer 10 in the second section. We have the answer of 80 and the answer of 4. So what are the partial products? And we have 200, 10, 80, and 4. The next part is going to continue on with our understanding of partial products. So it says the area model shows 15 times 22. So 15 times 22 is shown right out to the side. What are the partial products? So for each of these sections, we're going to determine the problem. So we can even pull them up to the top. So if we had 10 groups of 20, we know 10 groups of 20, I could solve 10 groups of 20, 10 times 20, put the 2 zeros, 1 times 2 is 200. So this first section is 200. And I can record this on the answer line because it's asking once again, what are the partial products, not the final answer. The next section, I once again go to the left to say 10 groups of 2. So 10 groups of 2, 10 times 2 gives me the answer of 20. So this section is worth 20 squares. The bottom section, we once again go to the left, 5 groups of 20, so that is 5 times 20. 5 times 20, we move the 0. 5 times 2 is 10, so that is a partial product of 100. And before we continue on, we forgot to write the partial product from the right side at the top. Now we can add the bottom partial product of 100. And then moving to the last section, we have 5 groups of 2. So this is 5 times 2. 5 times 2 gives me the answer of 10. I can write it in that section and then write it in the answer. So once again, the question is not asking me to solve to find the actual answer. It's solving to find the parts of each of these sections. The next part is saying for me to multiply the 1s, then multiply the 10s. So it's giving me the setup for my partial products already. So when we look at this, we know that this is going to be 20 plus 2 times 10 plus 5, because we're separating the original factor into place values. So then we can tell that this is going to be the sections of our area model. So if I drew my area model as a quick picture, I could say that my 20 is represented by 20 plus 2, so I could say 20 plus 2, and then separate it. My other value is worth 10 plus 5, and I can separate it. So now I can visually understand where they were able to pull those values. So the first one is 5 times 2, so this is 5 groups of 2. 5 times 2 gives me the value of 10, and then you can record it in your area model to keep track. The next one is 5 times 20, so 5 groups of 20. 5 times 20 is going to once again excuse me, give me the product of 100, and I can go ahead and put it in the answer. The next one is 10 groups of 2. 10 times 2 is 20, so I can record it in the quick picture, record it in my problem. And the last one is 10 groups of 20, so we have 2 zeros, 2 times 1 is 2, so this is the value of 200. So now I was able to find all of the partial products, and now the last step is to add those partial products. So now that they're stacked, 0 straight down remains a 0, 1 plus 2 is 3, in the hundreds place 1 plus 2 is 3, so my final product is 330. Having this set up, but also creating an area model, a quick picture, will help you to visually keep track of how to separate your values. The last one, 12 times 14, once again, we're going to remember to pull them apart. So 12 is the same thing as 10 plus 2. 14 is the same thing as 10 plus 4. And then we can create our quick picture to represent. So we said 10 plus 2, we're going to record at the top. So 10 plus 2. Draw the line to represent this section's about 10, this section's about 2. And the last one is 10 plus 4. And I do the same thing. The top section is going to represent the larger value. Now I can then keep track of how I can plug in the missing information. So the first one, it says what is what times 2. So I can look at what I've been given. So because if I look at my partial product boxes, I know it's going to be a single digit as an answer. So I'm going to pick the 2 boxes that are going to give me the smallest answer. So 4 groups of 2. So 4 groups of 2 gives me the product of 8, which I can then fill in the box. Moving to the next section, it says 4 groups, so we know that we're still in the bottom row. 4 groups this time of 10, so we record the 10. 4 groups of 10 is equivalent to 40, and I can place that in my answer. The last one, we need to make sure that we remember that we're going from the outside and at the top. So we're going to go 10 groups of 2. 10 times 2 gives me the answer of 20, which I can then record. And the last one is 10 groups of 10. 10 times 10 gives me the answer of 100, which I can also, now that we found all of the partial products, we can go ahead and add the values because they're already stacked. So in the ones place, 8 plus zeros, we can move down the 8. In the tens place, 4 plus 2 gives me the value of 6. The 1 gets brought down to be a product of 168. For those of you that are ready to also move on to using what we call the mommy-daddy method, I could rewrite my problem, stack to the side to double check my work. So this is the way that your parents and Mrs. Ling learned how to multiply 2 digits by 2 digits. For the rest of us that might not be ready for this, make sure that you are learning the partial product standard. So when we multiply, we're going to start with the same idea. So I usually use my finger and I cover up the bottom digit, so I'm only leaving 1 digit available, because we were able to learn this in our previous unit. So we multiplied the bottom ones place by the top ones place. So 4 times 2 gives me the product of 8. We move to the next place value. 4 times 1 gives me the product of 4. Now that I've used my 4, I then know that there's nothing left, and that's going to change to a 0. That 0 also is going to always get recorded on the next line. So in the second line, as soon as we're ready to change that to a 0, we also place it down in the bottom row. Now we're going to go to the tens place. So now we're multiplying the tens place by the 1. So we're doing the same process again. So 1 times 2 gives me the product of 2, and I record that in the next position in the second row. Now I multiply the tens place times the tens place, so 1 times 1 gives me the product of 1. There is no more numbers to multiply, so now I have what we would consider to be our partial products, and we can add. 8 plus 0 is 8, 4 plus 2 is 6, 1 gets brought down. My answer of 168 is identical to how I found my answer for partial product, so I've checked my work. This strategy Mrs. Ling just went over is called the mommy-daddy method, or the standard algorithm multiplying by place values. Let's go ahead to the right side, our practice page, where we're looking at our example. The word problem starts with number 1. The Castillo de San Marcos is a Spanish fortress that was built between 1672 and 1695. So I just want you to put your own little piece of information. This is located in St. Augustine, which is a fun fact since we have been talking about St. Augustine in our FSW in a previous week. The problem now is in part A, rounded to the nearest 10,000, so this is going to be important, rounded to the nearest 10,000, how many pesos did it cost to build the fortress? So we know that we're talking specifically about rounding to a place value, so the place value is 10,000, but we need to be able to answer our question. So I'm going to pull this to the side because once again, we have to use our caption for our picture to find part of the answer. So our answer needs to be used. 138,375. It's asking me to go ahead and round to the nearest 10,000. So I find the 10,000s place. So I found my place, look next door, 5 or more, raise a score. And then I look to the right, zeros in sight. So I need to raise the score of the underlying digit. So this 3 moves up to a 4. Everything always to the left stays the same. Look to the right, zeros in sight. So I start with my arrow number, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 place values that then change to zeros. Place the comma to show the correct value. So my answer needs to be then moved so we can label it. So 140,000, and it said how many pesos. So the answer is in pesos. Part B asks how many years did it take to build the fortress. So now we're looking at the amount of years. So we look back at the original information. So it had 1672 and 1695. So we start with the year it was finished. So 1695, and we're going to just say finished. because we then have to subtract the year it began. So 1672, and we're writing the word began. So then we subtract from the ones place. 5 minus 2, there's more up top, no need to stop. The difference is 3. In the tens place, 9 minus 7, there's more up top, no need to stop. The difference is 2. 6 minus 6 cancels out. 1 minus 1 cancels out. The last thing we have to do is to label our answer because it asked for the difference in years. So the answer for part B is 23 years. In the practice problem, it says which set of numbers has the missing, so this is a key, missing partial product and, another key, and the final product. So it has two things that we're looking for. So looking at our problem, we know that we were originally given 13 times 62. So that means that we would have pulled apart 13 to say 10 plus 3, and 62 to pull apart to say 60 plus 2. So we know that they're giving us answers for the partial product, but we need to also be able to understand where they got those answers. So draw yourself a quick picture. The first value, we're going to represent the top. So we're going to say that this is the bigger section, so it represents 10. This is a smaller section, so it represents 3. The next one, 60 plus 2, we always know the tens place goes at the top, the ones place is at the bottom. Draw your line to say that this top section is the larger value of 60, the bottom value is of 2. Now we can go ahead and multiply our sections. So 60 times 10 gives us the product of, use your zeros trick, move your zeros. This section is 600. So we can already see that this has already been used. The next section is 60 groups of 3. So 60 times 3, move the 0. 6 times 3 is 18. So we say this is 180. So 180, we look over on our choices. It is not being used. So we know that this should say 180. So we can then say, okay, well, we can eliminate some of these choices. So this is not going to be it because there's no 180. This is not 180. This is, so we're going to leave it. And then letter D does not. Since we did determine what is the answer, we want to double check that we have the correct final answer just to make sure. So the missing section says 2 times 10, or 2 groups of 10, gives me the product of 20. So I record it. I check, 20 is listed. The last section, 2 groups of 3, so we have 2 times 3 to give us a product of 6, and I check it to say there's the answer 6. Now I need to add my values, so that's why we had them stacked. Zeros plus 6 is 6. 8 plus 2 is 10, so we record the 0, regroup the 1. 1 plus 6 is 7, plus 1 more is 8. My final answer is 806. That checks out, 806, which means that we have indeed found the correct answer of C. The last thing you are asked to do for this is to write your reflection paragraph. Remember, this is 3 to 5 sentences, using complete sentences to describe how you are to solve our problems for this lesson. Today for classwork, you have your Envisions page, page 53 and 54. So you are to complete the even numbers and then show me all your work. So for all of these, I want to see an area model and the 4 separate problems. So what we've done in our notebook, where we pulled our information to the side saying 10 groups of 20, 10 times 20, I want to see that for all of these since you're only asked to do the even numbers. Okay, then flip your paper over. You're going to complete numbers 10, 12, and 14. So today for your assignment, finish up your reflection, then take a picture of those 2 completed pages, and then take a picture of your completed classwork, the front and the back. Don't forget, tomorrow you have 2 tests. You have a test on Unit 4 and you have your geometry vocab test.